Hello and welcome back to the Colony with Man of Dance. Today we're going to take a look at a VR experience, and not a game. It's an experience where you just get shown, as you can see, the Colosseum. It's called Colosseum. It's free. It's on Steam, and it's one of these sort of fantastical experiences where you can see something that you would never have an opportunity to see before. So I'm recording this after I've actually done the video, so I'm going to mention it again in the video, but I'll mention it again now. Things like the Sistine Chapel, the video that I did a while back. There have also been a couple of VR museums where you can go around and look at various artifacts. There was the little experience I did based on, I can't remember the guy's name now, which is going to be very frustrating, but the guy who did the Scream painting, there was like a whole experience based around him and his life and how he had got into that sort of part of art and what the Scream meant and where it came from and what else was going on in the world at the time, like a volcanic eruption that was thought to have been responsible for the colour of the skies that he did in that painting. So yeah, all those sorts of things, I absolutely love them because it's just a really interesting way of getting information on something that isn't just watching a TV show or reading a book. It's something you can experience for yourself in real time. You can see the Colosseum in all of its actual original glory, which is insane. So yeah, hope you enjoy this with me. Let's take a look. Obviously, we're going to go with English.
Ancient theatres were built as a semicircle, and the word amphitheatre means theatre on both sides. About 230 amphitheatres were built across the territory of the Roman Empire, and the largest one ever built is also one of the world's greatest works of architecture and engineering. It is the Flavian Amphitheatre, now known as the Colosseum, and its story begins with a fire. The Great Fire of Rome broke out on the windy night of July the 19th, 64 AD.
As we all know,
it raged for 6 days before being brought under control, but soon reignited and burned for another 3 days.
Wow.
Of Rome's 14 districts, only 4 escaped unharmed. Immediately after the fire was extinguished, a new city plan was drawn up, in which almost a third of the city, belonging to the people, was seized by the emperor for himself.
Of course.
He ordered a vast palace to be built, Domus Aurea, the Golden House, forcing many people to emigrate to other nearby cities. Nero had loved arts since childhood, and at first he also proved to be a capable emperor. Over time, however, his reign transformed into tyranny, and when he fulfilled his life's dream and performed publicly as an actor, he turned the conservative aristocratic classes against himself.
Of course he did.
These classes opposed theatre and art competitions as foreign entertainment, destroying Roman manners. He was declared a public enemy by the Senate, and the cornered Nero took his own life.
Because he was an actor.
After his death, 4 emperors traded places on the throne over a period of 18 months. For 7 months, the cruel and avaricious Galba ruled. This old man soon became wildly unpopular and was killed by the Praetorian Guard. The organizer of his murder, Otto, ruled for 3 months. He committed suicide after his forces were defeated. Prodigal Vitellius ruled for 8 months. He was executed by soldiers of rebellious legions who had elected their own emperor in the east of the empire and marched on Rome. They chose an experienced and respected general, Titus Flavius Vespasianus, or simply Vespasian, who at that time was suppressing a revolt in Judea. However, after the confusion arising from civil wars, he could not expect a warm welcome in Rome. Therefore, he postponed his journey to Rome for 10 months and urged his son Titus to conquer Jerusalem. The utter defeat of the Jews was to adorn Vespasian with the halo of the victorious leader, thanks to which he could defend his seizure of power. During the destruction of Jerusalem, the so-called Second Temple was also destroyed, yielding opulent spoils of war.
And now link it back to the Colosseum.
It is the year 70 AD, and Vespasian triumphantly enters Rome. 2 years later, funded from his general share of the booty, building works started. On the site that Nero confiscated after the Great Fire, he builds a pleasure palace for the people. Placed at the heart of Rome, the Colosseum becomes its symbol. Rome's imperial regime was restored.
I do think we should call it the Pleasure Palace from now on, to be honest.
After the Great Fire razed this originally densely inhabited area, Nero built his grandiose Domus Aurea on this site. It was a complex of lavish buildings and gardens with an artificial lake and
it's
a
moving me, by the way. I am not moving.
Of himself, which was set up at the entrance to the palace, the Colossus of Nero. Vespasian preserved the Colossus, but the lake was filled in and the land reused as the location for the new amphitheatre. Over time, much of the Domus Aurea was buried or torn down. The Colosseum is built of blocks of travertine stone from a quarry 25 kilometers away, along with volcanic rock, bricks and concrete. It forms an oval 527 meters in circumference.
I never knew it was an oval.
Besides slaves, teams of professional builders, engineers, painters and decorators also worked on the construction. Its building took 8 years to complete, and the successor and heir to the throne, Titus, held inaugural games lasting nearly 100 days. The Roman historian Cassius Dio recounts that over 9,000 wild animals were slain and a mock naval battle involving 3,000 men was enacted. Such spectacular shows were infrequent in the monument's history, and not all emperors were enthusiastic for these spectacles. Some celebrated their succession to the throne, their predecessors, birthdays, or victory over a foreign enemy.
I just realised each of the doors
the name Colosseum for the
have her own unique number.
Dates from the 6th century. Nero's successors remodeled his statue into the likeness of the sun god Sol by adding the appropriate solar crown and name, Colossus Solis. Some of the emperors also altered the statue's face to make it resemble themselves. One of them, Hadrian, moved the giant sculpture using 24 elephants to its position beside the amphitheatre, where it stood well into the medieval era and was credited with magical powers. It became an iconic symbol of the permanence of Rome. Are you afraid of heights?
Until it disappeared. Well, while we've got this break here, I just want to say, I've said this before. I haven't actually recorded the intro yet because it launched me right into the game, so I'll probably say in that as well. But this is this is VR's field. This is where it excels to me. You can't go to Rome and see the Colosseum as it was. You only get to see how it is now. And look at this. The statues lining all across, the eagle statues up there, all the flags flying, all the numbered doors with the actual red paint on it, the ancient Roman city surrounding us, hitting something behind me on that table. Yeah, it's just I love this sort of thing. I said before I was going to take a look at this, purely because I love this sort of interactive or even non-interactive VR museums where you can see stuff that you would never have a chance to see in real life. I love it. And when I talked about it before, I mentioned the Sistine Chapel VR experience that I did on the channel a while back. And if you haven't, if this sort of thing interests you, you need to go and find that Sistine Chapel experience because it's absolutely phenomenal. Anyway, I'm not afraid.
At the start of the Colosseum's construction, drainage
it gives you a platform. That's really nice.
8 meters deep, and one of the reasons the building still stands today are its foundations that
8
go
meters.
13 meters deep.
13? That's huge.
The outer wall's facade comprises 3 stories of open archways, framed by half columns of the Tuscan, Ionic, and Corinthian orders.
I don't know which is which.
Attic is decorated by Corinthian pilasters and small windows, between which are bronze shields. The total height is 48 meters. Each arch of the first and second floor frames a statue, honoring athletes, divinities, and other mythological figures. From the decorations found in the tomb of a family of builders who participated in the construction of the Colosseum, we know that, at least in the early years, there were eagles on the second floor, which were later replaced with figures.
That's
At
crazy.
the top are 240 corbels with sockets for wooden masts to support a retractable awning known as the velarium. This was to shade the audience from the heat of the sun and covers 2/3 of the arena.
That's crazy.
The immediate vicinity of the stadium features a complete support infrastructure.
Oh.
To the east are training schools for gladiators. Ludus Magnus, the large school connected to the Colosseum by an underground passage. Ludus Matutinus, the morning school, where animals and their hunters were trained, plus the Dacian and Gallic schools. Nearby is an armory to keep weapons out of the hands of gladiators, unless necessary, and a store for props and various machinery. Wounded gladiators were treated in the sanitarium, and there is also a military camp where sailors specially enlisted from the Roman fleet to work the velarium were stationed. Also stables for keeping all sorts of animals.
That's just
on
the
stables.
buried
Ruins of Domus Aurea were built the baths of Trajan. And in front of you stands Colossus Solis and the Temple of Venus in Rome. A triumphal arch dedicated to the Emperor Constantine the Great to commemorate the victory at the Battle of Milvian Bridge.
Was it really just in the middle of nothing?
17-metre-high marble fountain Metasudans, or the Sweating Post, around which a triumphal procession would turn from the Via Triumphalis onto the Via Sacra and into the Forum Romanum itself.
Love it.
Around the perimeter of the Colosseum was a series of tall stone posts, with 5 still surviving today. These played a role in controlling access to the building.
Only 5 remain. What? And obviously a lot of stuff was taken down for using other building materials and everything, but what would you do with it, a giant lump of stone like that? Love it. See, all of that stuff, all that prehistory little bit, I didn't know any of that. I did a bit of Roman in school, like 20 odd years ago.
Tokens of wood, bone or lead, on which is written the entrance, level and row number. They access their seats via circular corridors, numbered staircases and vomitoria, passageways that open into a tier of seats.
It's
These
so
quickly disperse
intensely
huge crowds of people
organised
into their seats and permit their exit within only a few minutes. Corridors also offer a variety of amenities, including drinking water fountains. There are 80 entrances at ground level, 76 of them for ordinary spectators. The 2 on the long side of the building are for the performers.
Is that where the chariot statue is, perhaps? I'm assuming so. I love how I don't know if you've noticed, but the doorways alternate between like stairs up to the next floor and then straight across, and then stairs up and then straight across. I love it. All these just people just milling around. All looking very similar to each other. A lot of inbreeding in Rome, it would seem. Ooh, that looks fancy. I want to go down there. It's going to have to... Surely it's going to take us down this one, right? Do it. Yeah. Oh, hello.
The northern and southern entrances, topped with a 4-horse chariot, are reserved for the elite and the emperor. All 4 axial entrances
elite.
Are richly decorated with painted stucco reliefs and brightly painted plaster. The typical sequence of displays during the day is as follows. In the morning are the wild animal hunts. They fight each other or are pitted against trained hunters. Utilized is a great variety of beasts, such as rhinos, elephants, lions, crocodiles, deer, ostriches, and many more. Battles and hunts are often staged in recreations of natural scenes with buildings, bushes, and real trees.
Look at that.
At midday are executions, either in varieties of ingenious slaughter and torture, or in the form of reenacting a story from mythology. For example, the myth of Orpheus was played, the magician who could charm animals. The Orpheus figure in this display works no such magic. He was torn apart by a bear. During intermissions, acrobats and magicians would perform. In the afternoon, the gladiatorial bouts begin. They usually fight one-on-one, with trainers and referees on hand to supervise the match. Victors may win fame, fortune, or freedom. Are you an emperor or a Vestal virgin?
I don't know. I don't know whether I want to see it from like the royalty side or what the ordinary citizens saw. I'm gonna go left. I kind of want to see what the citizens saw. We went green on the going up on the scared of heights thing, so we'll go green on this one as well. But it's cool that you have that option to see it from the other side as well. I'm guessing the Emperor had a pretty good view though, right? Certainly a pretty fancy box. Yeah, that's a pretty good view. Hello. More statues around that top level. Well, second level, whatever it's classed
The
as.
entire complex is designed to keep citizens of different status rigidly separated.
Of course.
Senators,
can't mix the
and
classes.
behind them, the next noble class, knights. The next level is
They had
divided into
knights?
2 sections, lower for the wealthy and upper for the poor citizens. Specific sectors are provided for boys with their tutors, soldiers on leave, foreign dignitaries, priests, and so on. All those sectors have marble rows. Above them is a section with stone rows, and at topmost level with wooden benches, reserved for non-citizens, slaves, and women, apart from the state priestesses known as the Vestal Virgins, who sit in front with the senators. The space allocated to an average spectator is only 40 centimetres, with legroom of 70 centimetres, although this for sure doesn't apply to the senators.
Or the Emperor, I'm guessing.
Some groups are banned altogether from the Colosseum, notably gravediggers, actors, and former gladiators. Special boxes at the north and south ends are for the Emperor and the other highest officials of the Empire. The Emperor also has a private tunnel which permits him to enter and exit the Colosseum without the need to pass through the crowds.
Well, why didn't I get to go through the secret tunnel?
The arena itself is an oval 84 by 50 metres, surrounded by a wall 5 metres high. A lattice work probably surrounded the senatorial podium, and there was an additional fence with a net in the arena, designed to keep the animals away from the spectators. However, on a few occasions, even those barriers weren't enough. A wooden floor covered by sand was built over an elaborate structure called the hypogeum, meaning underground. The Latin word for sand is harina. The underground corridors are not part of the original structure, but were built for Emperor Domitian when it was decided it would no longer be flooded for simulated naval battles.
Which in itself is insane.
To bring animals and scenery pieces
That's so
to the surface.
cool. I didn't know they actually come out of the ground like that.
Slave labor, skilled stagehands, chained criminals, caged animals and their trainers and hunters.
That's amazing.
All lit just by oil lamps and torches. It is also connected by tunnels to several points outside the building, allowing cages and performers to be brought in.
Hello.
Gladiators or swordsmen are exclusively men, outsiders in Roman society. Some of them are captives of war, slaves and condemned men. Others are the poor and destitute who seek hope and
I like
fame
his helmet the most.
impossible
That's what I was trying to
success.
decide. I like
When a
his.
freeborn citizen becomes a gladiator, he falls into official disgrace. The
He's just
same
got like a
category as
fork.
prostitutes and actors. The gladiators take their oath upon first entering gladiator school. He vows to endure, to be burnt, to be chained up, to be beaten, and to be killed by the sword.
Wow. That's a tiny shield you have
From
there.
ancient records, we can deduce the following average numbers. A gladiator has 2 fights a year. The death rate is about 1 in 6 in each show. 3/4 of all gladiators die before their 10th fight, and just a handful of veterans survive 50 fights. Over the centuries, there existed about 25 different types of gladiator. Here stand probably the 4 most important. The retiarius, or the net fighter, carrying a trident and a net,
or
styled
trident
as a fisherman. He wears a larger arm guard and a wide belt, holding his loincloth and a dagger. With the retiarius is usually fighting the secutor, or the pursuer, armed with a gladius sword, scutum shield, arm and shin guard, leather belt, and a helmet which covered the entire face to protect it against the opponent's trident.
Where's his arm guard?
The helmet is round and smooth, so that the retiarius could not get a grip on it with his net. The murmillo, wearing the same armor and weapons as a secutor, but with a different, larger type of helmet. The Thraex, armed in the Thracian style. He carries a small rectangular or circular shield and a short sword with a curved blade. He has an arm guard, decorated shin guards and belt, and a large helmet.
He does.
The average weight of the helmets is about 4 kilograms.
That's insane.
The heaviest coming in at almost 7.
That's
they
too
are
much.
often embossed with figures of barbarians paying homage to the goddess Roma, the personification of the city. Other types of gladiators were, for example, the provocator, or challenger, the hoplomachus, with his Greek equipment, the samnite, resembling tribes defeated by Rome in the 3rd century BC, and so on. A defeated gladiator, if still alive, is at the mercy of the audience and the sponsor of the games. When missio is refused, he is put to death by his opponent. To die well, a gladiator should never ask for mercy nor cry out. A good death redeems the gladiator from the dishonorable weakness and passivity of defeat and provides a noble example to those who watch. The shows are demonstrations of power of Rome over the conquered lands, a sign of family prestige, but also have a strong religious element and are a kind of sacred ritual of self-sacrifice to Rome. The biggest bloodbath ever recorded was organized by the Emperor Trajan to celebrate his conquest of Dacia. The games took place over 123 days.
Long time.
11,000 animals were killed.
Holy crap.
10,000 gladiators
Holy
battled.
crap.
But such
20,000 things
one
died.
Continuous block. First came 2 years of preliminary games with 12-day
2
blocks.
years.
Then came the main games lasting 1.5 years, involving 5,000 gladiators.
Wow.
This game plan shows that on average, the Colosseum was used 1 out of every 5 days. What went on, if anything, in the monument during the years of less frequent use, nobody knows. Thanks to a 4th century calendar, we know that out of 176 holidays, only 10 days were devoted to gladiator games, and that the Colosseum could accommodate 87,000 people. It's worth remembering that, as with Christmas, frequency is not a good guide to cultural importance. Also, modern estimates put the capacity at around 50,000 spectators.
Yeah,
Do
but
you
cram
want
them
to
in.
experience what it was like here when it was full of spectators?
Obviously. Look at that. All the way up to the top. All the women up in their wooden seats. Look at it. Love it. Love it. Oh, hello. Oh, wow.
In the 3rd century, the Colosseum was badly damaged by a fire caused by lightning. It was not fully repaired for 30 years. The practice of gladiator fights was banned at the beginning of the 5th century, and the last mention of fights dates from around 435 AD.
I didn't know it lasted that long.
It was not so much legislation that put a stop to the bloody spectacles, but rather repeated civil wars and barbarian invasions that limited
Damned
the capacity of the
barbarians.
state and individuals to sponsor games, to procure wild animals, and to maintain the costly infrastructure of training camps. In late antiquity, the capital city was moved to Ravenna. The population of the city of Rome declined, as did the empire.
I didn't know that either.
The last recorded animal hunts took place in 523 AD, when Anicius Maximus celebrated his consulship, and Rome was already under the rule of the Ostrogoths. Their king, Theodoric the Great, criticized the games for their high cost, even though they were still extremely popular. By the late 6th century, a small chapel had been built into the structure of the amphitheatre. The arena was converted into a cemetery, and spaces in the arcades were rebuilt into housing and workshops.
Oh, wow.
Around the year 1200, part of the Colosseum was even fortified. Severe damage was inflicted on the building by the Great Earthquake in 1349, causing the outer south side, built on less stable terrain, to collapse. An earthquake is coming. Do you want to survive it here, or do you want to leave the building?
Stick with the left, yeah? We'll see it from in here, please. Just like that. Ruined.
The amphitheatre was turned into a quarry. Tumbled and interior stone was reused elsewhere, and decorative marble elements were ripped out and burned to make quicklime.
That's crazy.
In the mid-15th century, one Italian scholar ruefully recalls that most of the Colosseum had been turned into lime. Those little holes all over the building are where enterprising medieval hucksters hacked out 300 tons of iron clamps which held the blocks together.
Of course they did.
Dismantling of the building began to slow down by the end of the 16th century, and restoration work started in the 18th century.
Oh, I didn't know it was that
With growing
long
pressure
ago.
to investigate the ancient history of the monument and the establishment of the new Italian state, the Colosseum was proclaimed a state monument and an archaeological site in the 1870s. The new authorities' first act was to remove what they called weeds. We don't know why, perhaps due to the special microclimate within the walls, or that seeds fell out of the fur of the exotic animals, but a total number of 418 various plants were identified at the site, including some extraordinary rarities, which had thrived for centuries in the building's ruins.
Until Italy
We
happened.
know very little about those who designed the amphitheatre, but thanks to them and to its preservation, it became a model of all large modern stadiums and a symbol of Rome.
Well,
Most
you
Romans
can see
and
why.
their bloodthirsty culture did not approve of the shows, but later Christians saw in them the cruelty of Roman paganism, to which they were so strongly opposed. And what do you think of the Colosseum?
I think it's
and all it
incredible.
represents?
It's crazy to see. I'm assuming this is how it looks now. It's crazy to see how it looks now compared to how it was, obviously, you know, but just... And the idea that idiot medieval people were just going around and just stealing bits of random iron that were holding it together is insane. Anyway, oh, I love that. There's so much I did not know. And again, that's why I love this sort of experience. Like, you could never experience what it's like to be an emperor in the Colosseum. How would you ever experience that without VR? It's just wonderful. I love it. I love it so much. Anyway, so it wasn't really a game, and obviously I didn't even really talk that much throughout that, but I hope that you enjoyed that experience with me and learnt a little bit as well, hopefully. If you did, hit that like button. That'd be fantastic. Comment, subscribe, all those good things. Don't forget I stream on Wednesdays at 7 PM UK time. It'd be wonderful to see you there. We're going to be starting off a new city in Cities Skyline, so I'm pretty noobish at City Skyline, so if you have a bit of experience or you want to come and name some things, some districts, some particular roads or whatever, or the city itself, I haven't got a name for that. I suppose we should think of that first. Come along, say hello, help me out a little bit. Otherwise, I will see you next time in some other absolutely gorgeous magical VR adventure, and as always, thank you very much for joining me.